Those projects are, by definition, off the reservation. And they are running outside the rule of law, and they are unconstitutional. A priori, they cannot cite the rule of law to prosecute anyone who defects from them. This documentary wasn't made for you all. It was made for 7.2 billion people out there who don't know anything about this. You know, after you have half a million or 1 million cases that are in the UFO reporting system, we have enough evidence. Believe it or not, as hard-ass as General George S. Patton was, he wanted this technology developed quickly and released to the public because he saw the humanitarian value of it. A new radar system they switched on that caused these ET craft to collide into each other and crash. But they were not just normal radar that did this. It's a pleasure to be here, and of course many of you thought that I was here for this presentation or the premiere. I was here for Paul. But I would like to thank Victor and Joanne and the conference for inviting me here, and all of our volunteers who are here. And Lara, thank you. It's your birthday today. Happy birthday. Mine is next week. Any other cancers out there? So what I'm going to take you through is sort of an expansion of what the Honorable Paul Hellyer just has shared with you, and go into some granular detail on the evolution of secrecy and what we can do about it. There is, as you all know, and everyone in this room, that you're not strangers to this, but some of the thousands of people on the webinar may be new to this concept, is that there has been 100 years of illegal activity, not 70 years since Roswell. And since the early 19-teens, and probably before, we have had breakthroughs in technology, which I rather kindly call the gangbanksters, and cartels of various types, oil, what have you, have kept away from the public. Most people don't know that in the 1920s, T. Townsend Brown was doing experiments with high voltage systems where you could have a crystalline structure, and with the correct electronic signal going into it, have that object levitate. Sounds familiar? Like a UFO? 1920s. This was reproduced in Germany in the Koloski-Frost experiment in late 1920s, 28, 29. Of course, T. Townsend Brown's work was subsumed by covert programs eventually, and the RAND Corporation. And what we are looking at today is a civilization on Earth that is dying because it has been strangled to death. And we are 100 years of lost evolution and of lost development as a people. And this is our chance to get it back. Now, a lot of people say, why did you do this film unacknowledged? Which, by the way, those of you who contributed to that, it was crowdfunded, raise your hand. Everybody give applause for the... That's how we made it. Okay, so that documentary, which some people go, well, you know, you didn't go far enough in it. I said, this documentary wasn't made for you all. It was made for 7.2 billion people out there who don't know anything about this, okay? So if you're going to be compassionate, you can't stay in your bubble. You need to go out of your bubble, and you need to reach out to the rest of the world. Now, we're very fortunate that we have a major distributor for that film, The Orchard, and that is now, I think we're 8 weeks on being #1 on iTunes worldwide. I think Richard Greer was miffed when his new movie came out and we beat them. No relationship. He's Greer, I'm Greer. So what is really important about Unacknowledged is that, and I'm going to just encapsulate it, you're going to see it tonight, and then we're going to have a Q&A after the film is shown. It's really an attempt to put together a taste of the evidence that's compelling, all from government sources, military witnesses, government witnesses, documents, etc. But then go beyond the, let's call it the ephemera, the sort of phenomenon of passing events and evidence. You know, after you have half a million or 1 million cases that are in the UFO reporting system, we have enough evidence. What's the secrecy about? But more importantly, how could they do this? How is it structured? And the name of the film comes from the first word that I learned of a special project category in the early 1990s, and this was just before I was briefing the director of the CIA. And unlike Paul Hellyer, he went on to not only defame me, but deny the meeting took place, and he took a golden parachute out of the directorate of the CIA onto the chief counsel for Booz Allen Hamilton, the contractor that Snowden worked for the NSA. And of course, he knew what side that his bread was buttered on, and did not want it to be known when I initially, after he was out of office, disclosed the nature of that meeting. But that's a side parentheses. If we had every one of, as I said before, of the integrity of Paul Hellyer, we wouldn't be in the world we have today. Now, what has happened is that the unacknowledged special access projects, which is the proper name for a super secret black project that is running sub rosa, beneath the surface and illegally, is that those evolved over the last century. And they took on a huge increase back in the era of the Roswell event. Just a point of note, Operation Paperclip was actually run by OSS, and OSS evolved and became the CIA. Now, I know something about this, having briefed CIA directors and put briefings together for them. Now, this Operation Paperclip wasn't just because we wanted the best and brightest German minds, who were very much, many of them, Nazis, but we wanted the technology. And I'm going to share something that's a little bit astonishing. Haven't shared this in any real detail yet, but I think I should. And about 6 months ago, I had a 7-hour meeting with the son of Senator John Warner, who I had fingered as a member of this cabal many years ago. And Senator John Warner, who was not Mark Warner currently of Virginia, he's the Senator John Warner of Virginia who's retired. He had been an undersecretary of the Navy and had been very connected to these classified projects from early on in his life. He married Paul Mellon's daughter. Now, the Mellon family, Paul Mellon, around the time, one of the few billionaires in the world at that time, went over in 1945 to Germany with General George S. Patton and some others to retrieve a partially functioning Nazi anti-gravity system that they were working on. And that was their secret weapon that they were going to win the war with. But they didn't get it perfected before we got the atomic bomb. And the rest, as they say, is history. However, an interesting side note to this, now I learned this, that Senator Warner's son, who's about my age now, a little bit younger, said to me, you know, Dr. Greer, I have to admit that my family are fascists. He just flat out said it completely. And he is not. But he said that he's come to realize that this is very much the case, and the people that they have worked with are also fascists. They are not interested in a democratic society and an open and free society. So what happened at this point is, believe it or not, as hard-ass as General George S. Patton was, he wanted this technology developed quickly and released to the public because he saw the humanitarian value of it. Free energy, no surface roads, no pollution, etc. and so on. They killed George S. Patton. He was assassinated. And this is known by the Mellon family. Now, Because of this, what happened, and this is 45 before Roswell, a chill went through what I call the white hats in the military industrial complex, because not all of them, you can't paint all of them with the same broad stroke. There were many of them who wanted this to come out and were stopped. And the ones who wanted to maintain the status quo, predictably, are the ones who benefit from the status quo of endless war and the centralized gangbangster system. Now, these folks worked hand in glove with large banking cartels and oil cartels. David Rockefeller was mentioned earlier. And yet there were people in those families who were trying to defect. For example, Lawrence Rockefeller, an early supporter of disclosure and the man who set up the briefings for Bill and Hillary Clinton and the materials we put together in the 90s, he was opposed to this secrecy. He wanted to make open, peaceful contact with these civilizations, and he knew we were in trouble. And so Lawrence Rockefeller, however, could only go so far. I recount this story. Gotta stay way back here. I recount this story of being at the Rockefeller Ranch, and I'm out there and late at night and he's in his 80s, mid 80s, and he says to me, well, we need someone to head this up. I'm a doctor working full-time in an ER. I mean, we're working, my short shifts were 15 hours, our long ones were 27. And I had 4 little children, and I had, I said, well, this is ridiculous. And I said, Lawrence, you're old and you're rich and you're a Rockefeller. Why don't you do it? He said, oh, no. He said, my family are already jumping up and down on my, I won't say what he said, toes, because I'm even hosting this meeting. And I said, well, why is that? He says, they don't want this to come out, the other part of this clan. So this is, people make these simplistic sort of conspiracy. God, these are the craziest things I've ever seen. You can't be near the podium without hitting. Oh, yeah, that had to be a robot. I've never seen such things ever. And so what happened in this 7-hour meeting with Senator Warner's son at the Watergate, ironically, where they have a home, or 2 homes joined together, a massive condo complex. And we were talking about this, and I said, well, to what extent has this been known in your family? And did you get confirmation directly? He says, yes. Paul Mellon, as he got older, had a few too many drinks once and spilled the guts, the beans, all of it, to Senator Warner's son, and confirmed that, in fact, we had technologies we'd gotten from the Nazis and had been studying, and that those were actually under development. But along with those technology are the things like this disintegrator weapon that Mr. Hellier referred to, that are scalar electromagnetic systems. Those are not new. Those were developed in the early part of the 20th century. And those were weaponized so that when these ET craft were checking out what these murderous monkeys, known as humans, were doing near Roswell, they switched it on, bang, 3 of them crashed. 2 were retrieved very quickly. The 3rd one wasn't found until 1951 or 52. So and people think, well, many people in the media have said, well, what would interstellar civilizations not be able to fly in our atmosphere? They were flying in our atmosphere and then were being surprise targeted with scalar or longitudinal electromagnetic weapons that were early iterations of what we have today. And that is why they crashed. And if you look at the FBI memo that's in the film Unacknowledged, you will see, if you read it carefully, from a field officer to J. Edgar Hoover, that it says that apparently the discs crashed near Roswell because of a new, and I love the euphemisms that they use, radar system. All right, so electromagnetic, bouncing things off of objects is radar. A new radar system they switched on that caused these ET craft to collide into each other and crash. But they were not just normal radar that did this. So we have to look back now of over 70 years, and this is the 70-year anniversary of Roswell, of actions being taken by humans, which, if we don't get this under control, could lead to exactly what we have been warned about. And I want to go through a few clips. Some of these you will see, not all of them, in the film. The first one I want to play is the one that was referenced by Mr. Hellier, by Eisenhower. No sound.
Sought by the military, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
And then play the next one. That was in 1961. This is they're on the
shadowy government with its own Air Force, its own Navy, its own fundraising mechanism.
There you go.
And the ability to pursue its own ideas of the national interest, free from all checks and balances, and free from the law itself.
That's a U.S. senator saying that, not a conspiracy theorist at a UFO conference. So, and then I want to play the next one, which is, put up the next quote from Admiral Roscoe Hillenkoetter, the first director of the CIA.
It is time for the truth to be brought out. Behind the scenes, high-ranking Air Force officers are soberly concerned about the UFOs. But through official secrecy and ridicule, many citizens are led to believe the unknown flying objects are nonsense. I urge immediate congressional action to reduce the dangers from secrecy about unidentified flying objects. CIA Director, Vice Admiral Roscoe Hillenkoetter.
Make note, that was the first CIA director at the time of Roswell. The CIA was formed within weeks of the Roswell event. He, in a letter to Congress that was later printed in the New York Times, called for this congressional oversight, and he did not talk about the dangers of the UFOs. He talked about the dangers of the secrecy around UFOs, just like Eisenhower did. It's a nuance with a huge distinction. So, on the one hand, we had interstellar civilizations surveilling our most sensitive atomic weapons facilities, and we were taking actions to down them and destroy them. And there have been hundreds of these objects that have been downed, not a couple, hundreds. In fact, there's a man on my team who was at Fort Huachuca, which is Army Intelligence Headquarters, ironically out near Tombstone, Arizona, where they had in an underground facility he worked in, where there were 9 separate ET craft of different types from different civilizations that had been downed, some of them in Mexico and then brought back up across the border. And in the morgue were just, dozens and dozens of ET bodies that were recovered and had been studied and in storage. So this is not something that's a everyday occurrence, but it isn't that rare, but it's incredibly dangerous. Because after I began briefing people like the director of the CIA and presidents and Minister of Defense heads in other countries and members of the Senate Intelligence Committee and generals and admirals at the Pentagon, I learned that the nature of these unacknowledged special access projects were that they were keeping most of those guys in the dark about what they were doing. And this is the most shocking thing of all, and this is why Eisenhower said, beware the military-industrial complex. It will become a threat to our way of life. The secrecy, excessive secrecy, will undermine our democracy. And actually, at the time he said that, that was his last farewell address to the nation, to America, as he left office in January of 1961. It had already happened. He wasn't saying this might happen. It had already happened. Because between the 1945 time period and 1960, there essentially had been a massive coup d'etat by very cleverly moving all these technologies and all these operations in a program that are unacknowledged and beyond the reach of the US president, and even if the president knows about it, beyond the control of it. An Air Force officer I met with who flew with John F. Kennedy on Air Force One told me, and I have a tape recording of this interview, it's very interesting. Back in the 90s when I interviewed him, he said, the president brought this issue up, and he said to me that he knew about it, and he had been briefed on the extraterrestrial matter. But he said, and I'm quoting, the whole matter is out of my hands, and I don't know why. Now, this is the President of the United States. And this should, this should scare the hell out of everybody. And I'll tell you why. Because we live in a world, it's sort of like the Truman Show. You remember that movie with Jim Carrey where, you know, he finally realizes he's on a set and it's all fake? We live in this world of sort of make-believe, and I call it make-believe politics, make-believe media news, make-believe science, make-believe history. It's all make-believe. And the truth is never spoken about. And very rarely, and when you do speak the truth, you're going to be attacked and pilloried, as I have been, and I'm sure others of you who've spoken out in your communities may have been. But the reason the secrecy has been enforced and created in this unacknowledged special access project, the mechanism of the secrecy, we're not talking about normal top secret TSSCI, top secret special compartmented information or intelligence. We're talking about a level of secrecy where if you had an organizational chart, you would have the President of the United States at about level 21. In fact, I've seen this chart. This is at about level 43, 44. So, and never mind your Prime Minister. So, no offense. I mean, no offense to any of you. I know, spoken like a real Yankee. And the same is true for our Secretaries of Defense. You know, Gordon Cooper, who is in our film Unacknowledged in an interview, and many of you have seen this clip. What you have not seen, and what most of you do not know, is that some years ago I was given a presentation, and so was he, to the Federalist Society, a very conservative, old guard, constitutionalist organization. And you see it a lot in the media. In Washington, and I was in a ballroom larger than this, and it was their annual gathering. And before I spoke, Gordon Cooper came up to me and my wife and said, you know, the Secretary of Defense a couple years ago, who at the time was Cohen, Secretary of Defense Cohen under Clinton, had asked me personally to give him all the specific data of what happened when his crew filmed a UFO landing in broad daylight out on one of the dry lake beds at Edwards Air Force Base, I believe in 1956. And because the Secretary of Defense wanted to see that footage and wanted to get to the bottom of this. And so astronaut Gordon Cooper gave the Secretary of Defense all the granular, actionable intelligence you would need to retrieve that information, and then got back later to Gordon Cooper, and the Secretary of Defense said, I'm denied access, apparently, because that has disappeared into some black hole. Now, this is the Secretary of Defense of the United States. So I tell these stories not because they're just apocryphal or sort of, you know, but it shows a pattern that's very important from a legal point of view. And that is, and this is where I would differ a little bit with my friend, Mr. Hellier. We don't need to rescind the National Security Act. What we need to do is to violate illegal projects that are using the National Security Act illegally. Let me go through that again. Get your mind around this. If an operation is illegal and is lying to the President and to Congress or to your Parliament and your Prime Minister or your Minister of Defense, because as Minister of Defense said, he wasn't read into the projects that I know are going on in Canada today and at the time he was MOD head. Those projects are, by definition, off the reservation, and they are running outside the rule of law, and they are unconstitutional. A priori, they cannot cite the rule of law to prosecute anyone who defects from them.
If you enjoyed today's video on Anonymous Official, leave a like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thanks for watching and sticking with us.